road boners the whole way here.
Yeah, this is being recorded. To make sure you cut that out, Gio.
No. Not a chance in hell that's coming out. That's going to be the intro.
All right, we ready?
Yep.
All right, let me get to my 4 fucking notes I wrote down.
Cash is coming.
Yeah. All right, everybody, welcome to You Are Not Normal podcast with TONYMONT. I got a great guest today. Actually, our first real guest, I would say. I hate to say that about Giovanni and Kayla, but they're just always around, you know? They just kind of hang around. I feel like sometimes I'm like a 40-year-old great white shark, and I have these like feeder fish that are keeping me clean and on the right, you know, keeping me healthy.
Stuck to your body.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And that, I mean that in the most endearing way possible about Gio and Kayla. Like, they're in my life almost every day, and they help me through my life, and they have been my only guests on this podcast, and I love them dearly. But you traveled far and wide to make it to the podcast
Through
today.
the rain.
Through the rain. Imagine that. It's raining in North Carolina. I just spent a week and a couple days in Utah, and it was 65 every day. Down in the desert, it was sunny every day. There's beautiful people out there. Like, why is there so many beautiful women in Utah? It's crazy. I don't get it. Because I looked up the other day that what are the ugliest cities in America, right? Because I'm curious, because I've lived out here in North Carolina for almost 3 years, and the aforementioned Kayla, when we go out to dinner or lunch or whatever, we play a game of find an attractive person. And it is almost impossible to find an attractive person in North Carolina. Charlotte is like number 3 most ugliest city.
That's where I'm from.
And that's where you're from. That's why I'm educating you. And I would say Raleigh, if Charlotte's the third, then, I mean, Raleigh's not really a city, but they're uglier here than in Charlotte. So what does that say about Raleigh? But having said all that, you're very handsome.
Thank you.
And you're the most handsome man in Charlotte.
Thank you.
But thanks for coming in. I love you. I'm so happy you're here. Every time I see you, I just get filled with joy.
Thank you.
And so welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And this is Cash Money Mike Termini. And I would love for you to just give a quick rundown, who you are, what you do, tell the audience, and then we'll get right into it.
Name, rank, serial number, the whole 9
That's it,
yards.
yeah.
Well, first, I love you. Thank you very much for having me on. So my name is Mike Termini. I am a seller finance educator inside the real estate space. Been inside the game for right at about, what are we, in 2024? So almost 24 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, about
I didn't
24
realize
years.
that.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
Long time. Just turned 50.
Yeah.
Just
You look
turned
great for 50.
Thank you.
We're 10 years apart. I look like I could be your stepdad. So that's you're doing something right.
Yeah.
I'm 40. So
Are you 40?
Yeah, I just turned 40.
Yeah. Married, 3 kids. We had a little talk about my kids earlier before we got on the podcast. Just been in the game and educating everybody from across the country. It's been amazing.
Love it. And you do a great job educating as well.
Thank
You
you.
were on one of the Misfits calls. You did our Elite call last week as well.
Yep.
Reached a bunch of people in our community. And every time we do a call or a Zoom, or anytime you're involved with anything we do in our office or with our communities, everybody loves Cash Money Mike.
Thank you.
And you came to us through training, right? Didn't you meet us through Eric's sales training originally?
Yeah, I had this RV that I was like unwinterizing, and my wife was on my ass about something. I'm like, I'm getting the hell out of here. And I went to a campground, and I was in the campground in the RV. Eric had popped up on my Instagram. And like anybody who comes in contact with Eric or even yourself, you guys are so exciting to be around, and people just want to get to know you. And as I'm looking through my Instagram, I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I was hooked. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm like, I've been in sales for a minute, but this guy could probably teach me a thing or two about, his process. So I jumped into that class, and there were like 40 people in the class.
Yeah. I think it was like the first one he did.
Yeah, I didn't know that until like last week.
Yeah.
I think he said to me last week that that I might have been the first class. So almost going on what, like 2.5 years now, or 2 years.
Yeah.
And as I'm in the class, it hits me like a ton of bricks that I was like, this guy doesn't know shit about real estate. I was like, holy fuck. And it was a packed class.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is he teaching that, you know? And ultimately, he knows a lot about real estate, as do you. The process was just a little bit different. And I was laying in bed that night with my wife, and I go, I'm going to Raleigh. And she goes, what do you mean? You don't even know this cat. And I go, I'm about to know him, watch. And I shot him a text, and I go, hey, I'm coming in to teach you seller finance. You have no idea what you're missing.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing these numbers at this volume, and you don't know how to lock it up creatively, I know how much I left on the table by not understanding it.
Sure.
And you guys are doing it at such a high level that I was like, I'm going fucking there. I don't care if I got to like sleep outside to just show him. And he shot me back a text. He's like, let's do it. And I said, let's do it. And then I came in. I don't think, because you guys were in the smaller office back then.
We were in APEC. Yeah, we were in the small office. I think I met you when you came in, but I was on my way out of town or something.
Yeah.
So I met you briefly. You started teaching, and I was like, shit, I got to go. I got to catch a flight. And I took off. So I wasn't there for the whole day. But I know the impact it had on everybody, because the next 2 weeks, everybody was only pitching seller financing on the phone. I'm like, shit, this could be a problem. But it's so funny because we're finally now, so that was a couple years ago, and we're finally now getting a little breathing room. We got a sales manager in place that's taking a lot of responsibilities off of me and Eric in the office. We just hired a full-time underwriter that is now going to be comping all the deals. So that takes 90% of our work off of us. We're not underwriting the deals anymore. And we're now shifting from, we used to have, 6 acquisitions for 3 dispo people, right? And that was kind of the ratio we were going at. And even that was a high ratio. People would be like, why do you have so many dispo people for, so little acquisitions? And we're like, well, we lock up more deals and acquisitions than most companies. So like it's a ratio thing. Because I don't want to overload my dispo, but I don't want them to have too less of deals so they can't make some money,
Sure. Sure.
But now what we've realized after, hiring the sales manager and all that, it's like, man, we could actually have 1-for-1 dispo to acquisitions. So now we're in the process of hiring 3 or 4 more dispo to keep up with acquisitions, so we can, have more time on every single one of these deals where we can concentrate on it and make sure nothing gets canceled and we're getting top dollar for them. Because just like everything in this industry and wholesaling, when we came into it, all these KPIs, everybody's structure, everybody's processes, they were all exactly the same. Like one guru yelled from the mountaintop, here's your KPIs, this is how your office should be, here's your marketing, this is all this, and then everybody said the same thing. But what we quickly realized was, well, we can do everything different than everybody else. Like none of this shit means anything to us because we're locking up more deals, we have a better sales process, we have a better dispo process than anybody. We've changed the game on both aspects. Like Eric's sales process is unmatchable. He's the only person on social media that shows numbers because, I feel like a lot of people out there that are saying they're closing deals and all this stuff, why aren't they showing their CRM?
Yeah.
It's so simple. If there's any doubt in your community, show your CRM. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if you're trying to scale. I mean, you're probably not going to look to anybody who can't show their numbers, right? If you're trying to scale a wholesale company. So yeah.
Yeah. And like, why, I don't know, this drives me nuts too. Cause it's like people will pay so much money to an influencer or a coach or something like that without even, and we've done the same thing. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the beginning in coaching, and we didn't ever see these guys and gals' numbers. And then once we got into the community and the masterminds and started seeing what was really going on, we're like, man, within a couple weeks, we're like, we're actually doing better than they are. And they're trying to teach us. Our KPIs are better. Our processes are better. Here's how you dispo a deal. And it was like, throw them on Facebook Marketplace. You'll get an offer. And it's like, that's your dispo process? Like we've completely revamped both sides of the business. And it's so frustrating when people will reach out and they'll say, man, I really want your guys' training, but I just spent $5,000, $10,000 over here. And I'm not getting much out of it. And it's like, well, why the fuck did you do that if you didn't see what these people are doing? Like, you didn't know their numbers. You didn't come to their office for a mastermind and test the waters, you know? And I think that's something you do really well with your training is you break everything down and you're so knowledgeable. Like, every time I see you break down a deal. Same with Eric. Every time he sees you break down seller financing, creative financing, we both look at each other like, damn, Mike knows what the fuck he's talking about compared to all these other huge communities where it's so ancillary and it's just like this surface level bullshit, you know?
There's nothing worse than paying for a room, hoping to get some value out of it, and then only come out of the room, right? And there's nothing there. And like, to your point about Instagram, I don't know who came up with a lot of the stuff, because when I first came in, which was just around the same time that you guys came in, it seemed like that was the process, right? Like, you know, these KPIs and how to lock up the deals and what to lead with and what not to lead with. So I jumped on the train, but when I jumped on the train, it felt a little bit fucking weird to me, where I was like, this doesn't seem right. Like, why would you, specifically for creative, why would you lead with a low cash offer, right? And then kind of put yourself up against the wall and try to pull yourself out of that conversation by now being able to offer more, you know, after you burn the trust with the prospect. So when you guys had come into the industry and literally didn't make a seat at the table, but like threw the table out the window and like here's the new table and everybody else can have a seat. Yeah, it was like a breath of fresh air. And for me personally, I have pulled back from a lot of those circles that in the early months that we were kind of running with, because I don't think they're as gifted as somebody like you and Eric. We have a true gift to, you know, really be able to teach people the right way. And thank you for the compliment, but that's a compliment that I get all the time is like, hey, you just, you know, there is no theory with me. There's a little bit of theory, but then it's more about the how to. And people want to know how to do things. Right. You know?
Of course.
Not just talk about it. So
it's real situations and real training. Like, it's not bullshit when it comes to me and Eric's training or your training. And I think people realize that pretty quickly. I mean, we've only been on social media for a couple of years, and the traction all of us get is strictly because it's not all the flash and bullshit. It's literally, this is how you do it, and this is how we do it. We're teaching you exactly how we do it. Here's our numbers, and here's an example of a deal I did, like what you do. You did on the call the other night, like that deal you did in what was it, Gastonia or something, where it was you got for $250 a month.
Oh, that's east of Charlotte and a place called Norwood.
Norwood, I know Norwood.
Norwood, North Carolina, yeah.
But you get this house on owner finance for $250 a month for what, 15 years or something like that?
So that one I structured, that came through a first-time flipper who ran out of money. Right. And when he ran out of money...
But he owned, I mean, he was a homeowner.
He was a homeowner.
Yeah.
He ran out of money. He was looking for some money, and I saw an opportunity, so I went in and structured an amazing deal on the front end where I actually pay this guy $250 a month with no interest. So there's not a lot of principal pay down, but the payment amount is so fucking small, right, that the cash flow becomes incredibly heavy. Right. And then all you really do is add up the cash flow that you would get over the timeline that you have before you have to pay it off, right? Because most people aren't going to wait 30 years to get paid off, right? So you're always looking for more time, and the more time you get, the more cash flow you get. And in that instance, you wind up with a free house.
Yeah.
You wind up with a free house because the tenant pays the way the whole way.
It's crazy. And when you break those deals down, it just makes so much sense. And as I was saying before, like with the breathing room we're getting here at the office, it's like after you hopped on our calls last week and coached our community. I called Eric one night last week and I was just like, man, we say this every time we see cash money. Like, we don't do enough of this, and we need to like dedicate a closer to just locking up creative deals, because I think we could lock up 10 a month. Like with the data we have in our system, like we have missed out on millions and millions and millions of dollars because every creative deal we have locked up has made us a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
We own a house in, I don't even remember where it's at. Southport, North Carolina. It's over by the coast.
Yep.
But we got this on a 10-year seller finance, no interest, no money down, $650 a month. And it rents, I think it's renting for $19.95 or something.
Yeah.
We put like 20 grand into it, new roof, updated it, and it just sits there and cash flows now. It's going to cash flow for 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, it's already got $50,000-$60,000 of equity as it sits right now. What's it going to have in now 8 years? We've had it a couple of years. But it's like, if you can get, even conservatively, if you get 5 of those a year, you're rich.
I've got students who have been through my training that cannot believe that they own a multifamily building. It's like their second deal or third deal, and they're like, I can't believe I own this thing. And then there have been some deals that we've structured just last year alone that are absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
Not small numbers either.
Right.
Like a ton of equity, a ton of upside, a ton of value add. You know, there's really 3 parts to real estate, right? There's the buy part, there's the use, and then there's the sell.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I buy it, I either buy it with cash or I buy it with a loan. You could buy it creatively if you understand which questions to ask. Then there's the use. So you're either going to use it as a primary or you're going to use it as an investment piece. And then there's the sell. And this is where it gets like super interesting. And in my opinion, where all the magic happens, because we're so used to just buying and selling property and getting these big rips and thinking that we're hitting home runs. We're like, yeah, we got a $50,000 rip or a $60,000 rip. When in reality, if people can have a little bit of a mind shift where they go from this short term to long term, just like you said, like they're little ATM machines that continue to spit out little gold coins each and every month.
Yep.
So learning how to buy things creatively is nothing more than understanding a loan.
Yeah, and it's understanding numbers, which I love.
Me too.
You know, I love it.
Me
And
too.
that's, when I put out like a call that I make on social media, when Gio posts like a call that I'm on with a seller or, a buyer or whatever it is, I don't have like this boisterous, I'm not like a salesy type person. Like I just educate. Like that's my sales process, is educating.
I was thinking about this on the way here. You are the most emotionally intelligent person in sales that I've ever watched, because you're so even keeled and you don't let a lot of the stuff kind of, infiltrate you that a lot of investors do, right? They feel a certain way about getting told to fuck off. Or
They get emotional.
They get emotional. And watching you are a prime example of like somebody with very high emotional intelligence.
Well, I've dated a lot of crazy women in my life. So when you do that, you realize that you can't match that energy because it all falls apart. You have to stay even keeled, and I wasn't like that in my youth. Like it took me a long time to learn that, and my high highs and low lows of my youth and being emotional and being aggressive and all that, all it did was get me into trouble and burn bridges and create bad relationships. So after I got out of jail and I started, reinventing my life is really when that all switched. I mean, I moved from Chicago, this big fast-paced city, hustlers, all that, out to California, where everybody's pretty chill. And it kind of just switched my whole mindset of like, oh, there's a different way to live and communicate. And that's really how my communication and sales skills changed, was out in California. Because now I'm dealing with hundreds of people a day coming into the bike shop, and I had no sales background at all. But I slowly realized, like, yeah, you got to be on a calm demeanor to get through some of these sales, you know? And it makes people, like, especially out there, like most people that walk into a bike shop are so intimidated. They haven't bought a bicycle in 20 years. They haven't rode one in 10 years, you know? And they're just like, I don't know. There's all these different bikes and gears and brakes. I don't know anything about them. It's like bringing your car to a mechanic. You're like, I don't know what the fuck a water pump is. And so you can be intimidated because you're not educated. So when people would come in, the first thing they say is, I'm just looking around. It's like, great. What are you looking for? You know, I just need a couple bikes for the family. Awesome. Where do you? And then I would just go into rapport building. Like, and this all just happened naturally. Like, I just understood the psychology of the person. So they'd come in, and then I would just talk about their day, their life. Are you from here? No, I grew up out here. Oh, I know somebody out there. And then we'd get to laughing, and then we'd come back to the bike. And then I would just say, all right, so you're in a neighborhood with the family. Is there a lot of hills there? Yeah. Okay. You might need some gears. Give them 2 or 3 options. That's it. Let them ride them. And then the minute they come back, it's like, all right, which one do you like? This one? Great. And then I would just start wheeling it up to the register and assume the sale. And it was like that. It just worked like clockwork. And I learned that over time, but it was like this calm demeanor that I had with all these people that made them feel really comfortable to come into a bike shop, this huge shop with all these different bikes they knew nothing about, and I could make them feel comfortable in there.
If we correlate that into real estate and we think about a lot of people who get into this space, it's that because you actually walk the walk and you've been through the process, you understand it. So just like you said, you assume the sale, you grab the bike and you bring it up and you make the sale. With people who get into this business, especially people who are looking for education, real education, might find somebody online who hasn't walked the walk and is just teaching you some generic bullshit that they believe is going to get you a little bit farther along. And the reality is that you have got to, at some point, walk the walk here and like actually, you know, look at a piece of property and crawl under a crawl space and understand what a hot water heater is and understand what an HVAC is and understand what, you know, roofs are and understand all these different things, and then try to purchase that. And then you have to apply for a loan and you've got to bring them all of your stuff. And then you've got to understand what a closing table is. And when you get through the process of understanding that, it makes the sales process a lot easier, right? Because you've actually walked it. And there's so many people that come in here that haven't walked it. And if they find themselves, you know, in your presence or in Eric's presence for wholesale newbies just starting out, I mean, obviously you found the right guys, right? You found the guys that are actually walking the walk, understand how to do it and everything else. So it's really, you know, when you go through the process, what it allows you to do is it allows you to formulate questions that you know the prospect has.
Right.
And you know the answers to those questions before they get shot at you.
Yeah, you're steering this conversation in the direction you want it to go. And that's exactly the kind of my process on the calls, because it's like, I'm going to cover everything. Everything I know this person's going to ask me. I know you're going to ask me this, so I'm just going to ask it of you or just explain it to you right off the rip. And there's times like there's been times where the closers have had somebody on the phone and they just can't get through to this seller. And they're like, Tony, I need you to hop on the call. And I'll sit there on a call for an hour and a half. I've done it I'm thinking of a call I made where they were like, we are not signing. We do not want to sign the pre-marketing clause. We've been through this before. And after I got on the phone with it was a family. It was a older wife and husband and their daughter. And after like another hour and a half of me explaining everything in detail and just every objection they were throwing at me, I was just right there with an answer. At the very end, every one of them just sighed. They were just like, oh, all right, we'll just sign. Just send the contract. Like, we'll just sign. Because they couldn't stump me. And I think that like you have to educate yourself on what you're selling. Like a lot of people in this business, they don't educate themselves. They just fucking grab a free script or take a fucking weekend course or whatever the fuck it is. They go to an event and they're like, oh, this is easy. I'll just start calling these homeowners.
Yeah, like a magic pill. Yeah.
You have to learn what you're selling. You have to be a master of it. You have to be educated on it, an expert on it, so you can educate the seller, the buyer, whoever you're working with to sell this property or buy it, so they're comfortable enough to work with you, you know? And I think there's a big missing piece in this industry because it's a room full of hustlers and they're just looking for that next shiny object to sell. They're not educating themselves on the actual product, which is real estate. It is sales and marketing, but you got to know your product. And it goes in the hustler thing, before I forget, like as you were talking about, you know, the creative side of it and the seller finance and building a portfolio and actually creating wealth, right? Like a lot of your students do. It's hard for hustlers, which a lot of hustlers in this industry, it's hard for hustlers to see down the road.
I know it.
Especially because a lot of people who get in this industry want to get rich quick. They've never had money. They haven't had a lot of success, you know, and they're trying to fucking get that first taste of success. Like I'm lucky enough to have success in another industry. I didn't even pay myself for the first year in this industry. Like I didn't need the money to survive. So like I was already in a different mindset, but I can see somebody coming in saying like, shit, I'm making 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a month now in wholesaling. I'm going to buy that new car. I'm going to get the better place. I'm going to get new clothes. I'm going to get a Rolex. But you got to know when that fucking ceiling hits to where you're like, all right, I got everything I want. I know that if I get another new car, it's not going to make me happy. I know if I get a bigger house, it's going to make me more miserable. I know if I get another Rolex, I'm not going to like the one I fucking worked so hard for. So at that point, instead of keep chasing that fucking dream, how about thinking about life in the future and how can I get deals and get cash flow to where I'm not stuck in this fucking hamster wheel?
You also have a larger problem when a brand new newbie actually puts a fucking deal together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The worst thing that can happen for a newbie is that you get a $70,000 rip. Because once you get a $70,000 rip, you believe that's the way it's going to be. And just like you said, you don't have the emotional intelligence. You don't have the sales. You don't know the product. You just got 70 racks and you're like, we're off and running here.
Right.
It's the worst mistake in the world.
Yeah. It's the worst
You're better
thing for
off
you.
taking 90 days, sitting down at a fucking desk and understanding all of the instruments that are connected to real estate, because it's very, very, very highly litigious. It is.
Yes.
It's a very highly litigious field. And when you understand all of the instruments that are connected to it, and then you get around guys like you, myself, Eric, you know, you can then kind of put deals together that just make a lot of sense that could ultimately pay you forever. It's this mind shift. It is the hardest gap to bridge.
Yeah.
Is this mind shift from short term to long term. But you really have a big problem when you catch one, because I mean,
that made me laugh because like I've seen it happen. I spilt on my shirt as I was drinking my water because I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Where like somebody gets a big rip and then they fucking hit a desert for fucking 6 months because they're like, oh, this is too easy. I don't got to fucking learn anything. I'm a fucking boss.
Yeah. It's like, what happened?
Yeah.
It's like, you got struck by lightning. What do you mean what happened?
Yeah.
And you're not going to get struck by lightning again.
Yeah, you better fucking get good.
So you better get good. And you better get around the right people to get good.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
So what were you doing before real estate, though? You have an interesting life.
Oh, boy, man.
You have a very
How far back
interesting-
you want me to go?
As far back as you want.
Shit.
Because like almost every time
There I was in the NICU, and I'm like, yo, you got a light?
Yeah, it's every time we get into a conversation about your life before I met you and before real estate and all that, I'm always like, this motherfucker is like, I mean, you're one of those people which is you're so interesting. I remember when we first met, it's always a big hug, you know?
Yeah.
It's like we kind of come from the same cut of the same cloth, you know? I come from very traditional Italian background. My grandparents from Sicily. It's always a big hug and a kiss. I love you. I think the second time I met you, you gave me a big hug and said, "Love you, Tone."
Yep.
Like, it's just like,
Oh, yeah.
like I feel like family at this point. Like,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't have many friends.
yeah,
And I'm not looking for any new friends.
right,
But when I find somebody that, like, I love,
yeah,
then I love them. And I love you. I mean, I just connected to you.
yeah.
I could have met you fucking 10 years from now and we would have been just as connected, or 10 years earlier.
I feel the same way. There's like those people you meet where you're just automatically on the same,
Connected.
yeah, the same energy level, whatever it is. And yeah, we definitely feel that way. But again, let's go back to, you grew up in New York, right?
Yeah. I grew up in New York.
Like, what are you, half Italian or something?
So I'm half Italian, half Irish. My father's side of the family is all Italian. My mother's side of the family is half Italian, half Irish. So maybe I'm a quarter Irish.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know it in my family. There isn't we don't celebrate St. Patty's Day or anything like that. Sundays are big days, and holidays are big days. But I come from a very big family. We have an interesting thing in my family where two brothers married two sisters.
Okay.
And then had a bunch of kids. So my mom, I'm the oldest of four. I've got a younger brother, two younger sisters. And then she had, not everybody's still around, but she had, I think there was a total of 5 of them. And her sister married my father's brother and had a bunch of kids. So my cousins look more like me than my actual brother does.
Yeah.
Come from a huge family, and I can very distinctly remember right at about 15 years old, my old man's like, "So what are you going to do for money?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "Well, there's a pizza place right down the, right down the block. Why don't you go see if you can get a job?" And I said, "I don't know how to even ask for a job." He's like, "Just get the fuck out and go find something to do." And I was
go
like,
figure it out.
Yeah. So off I went and went down, asked for this job. This is the one and only job I have ever had my entire life. I never had a job after this.
What was the owner like of the pizza place?
Polish guy. His name was Mark Polway.
Polway.
Polish guy. Yep. And fucking high energy. It was bananas because this is before Papa John's. This is before like all of these places.
It's a real pizzeria.
Real pizzeria.
Yeah, like back home. Like, we didn't order fucking Papa John's. Like, you go to the local fucking...
Friday night, you went to the fucking pizza place.
You went to the pizza. You knew everybody. There was a place right by my house that I used to go to. I'd get an Italian beef, and I would get a large cheese, sausage, mushroom every single Friday night. And then the Nana that was working in the back, rolling cannoli. She'd give me a cannoli
mixing the sauce with her hand.
Yeah. She'd throw me a cannoli and say, "Thanks for coming, Tone." And then I'd leave. Like, it was, I don't even know the name of the fucking place. I don't even know if they had a sign. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if this place had a name. It was just a fucking place everybody went.
Yeah.
Like, it was just the place on the corner.
Yeah.
Riverside, North 2nd. And I would just fucking go. And we knew Johnny was the guy working and his mom was in the back. And everybody called her Nana. Go in there, get your beef, get your fucking pizza. She'd throw you a cannoli, you go home and eat it.
Yep. I think everybody should work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
I
never did.
In a kitchen specifically.
Why do you say that?
You get to work around people. You get to learn how to move around people. You get to, I mean, this place was fucking bananas. It was called the Corner of Italy. And
with a Polish
Friday
guy.
night, you'd answer the phone, corner, and you had somebody up at the front making pizza, somebody on the steam table, somebody on the cold thing, and went in for the job. And he said he wasn't hiring. And then 3 days later, he was knocking on my front door, and he's like, "You want to come?" And I go, "Yeah." And I came, and I'll never forget because they put me right on the sink to wash dishes. This fucking murky water full of like tomato sauce and all this shit. And I put my hand in to grab a plate and stab myself with a knife that was sticking up that I couldn't see, and bleeding all over the place. And at that time, you wrapped it up with whatever the fuck you had, and you went back to washing the dishes. Yeah. And
well, I got scars all over my hands from working construction where I'd be doing something, I'd split my knuckle wide open where you could see the fucking bone. I was an electrician. I would just grab black electrical tape and maybe rip off a piece of my handkerchief, put it on it, wrap it up with electrical tape. I wouldn't fucking even tell anybody, and I would just get back to work.
Yeah.
Like, those fucking days seem to be over. Somebody gets a fucking paper cut, they want a week off.
Yeah. So I started there, made some money, met my girlfriend at the time, who you know is my wife. Met my girlfriend at the time, and the worst thing that can happen to a young, horny fucking high school kid is to find a girlfriend.
Sure.
Because once that happens, you're like, I don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
But just chase tail and do whatever we
Sure.
got to do, right?
Sure.
So kind of derails you a little bit, and then I just
But we're animals when we're that age. How old were you? 16?
yeah, 16.
Dude, when you're a 16-year-old guy, you're a fucking animal. Like, you're fucking testosterone. Like, you got testosterone of a bull shark for the first time in your life.
Yeah.
Your nuts get a little hair on them. You start getting a little fucking energy and muscle.
Yeah.
You start sniffing some ass. And then it's just lights out. That
Yes.
consumes your whole life.
Your whole life.
Like, and I think you think about like high school. How the hell does any kid get anything done in high school? Like back in I went to high school in the late 90s, right? Mm-hmm. But like that's right when girls started wearing like yoga pants and shit. And it's like if a girl like the cheerleaders everybody's hot when they're young. I mean, everybody's like when you're in high school, everybody's just good looking. Yeah. Like nobody, though, life has not fucking ruined you yet. Yeah. Like, you know? Yeah. So it's like, how can you be a 16-year-old guy in high school and get anything done when every girl looks good to you and you're just staring at these girls in yoga pants and shorts and cheerleading outfits on Friday for the football game? And it's like, you're a freaking animal. There should be a little separation of like, this is maybe crazy to say, but I think like in high school, there should be like boys only classes and because like, or otherwise you're going to be so distracted. It doesn't matter what happens. You don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's
about
like, hey, Mike, you want to come up to the board and like do the math problem? You're like, I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah. I can't stand up right now.
I can't stand up
Jennifer
right now.
is sitting next to me.
Jen in front of me is, smells like cotton.
Yeah. So yeah, it is tough. It's tough growing up. Yeah. You know, you get distracted. So you meet
from
sticks.
That. Yeah. So from that job though, I want to just kind of backtrack a little bit. From that job, what was so nice about it is that just like you with the bike shop, right? I didn't have any experience with people. And then once I started having experience with people, I started like testing the people, like almost like I didn't want to be me every day. So I would be somebody else or say something a little bit different to see what kind of reaction I would get out of somebody. And that led me to wanting to study theater. And I went down to the city. I'll never forget. I was like fucking 16, 17, man. I had a little blue Chevette. Remember those Chevettes?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
I had a little fucking blue Chevette, and I get down the Palisades Parkway, get over the George Washington Bridge, get down the West Side Highway, take my acting classes. This is when panhandlers were still there. You know, fucking guys washing your windows and all this stuff. And I got my headshots done, and I put my headshot on the wall in the pizza place. And the headshot came out so fucking well that everybody who would come in would be like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? I'd be like, that's me. That's me. And they're like, what do you do? And I go, I'm an actor.
Yeah. What
Meanwhile,
I'm an asshole? Yeah, I'm an actor.
I had taken like 2 classes.
Yeah.
And from there, I got an agent. And once I got an agent, I started getting cast in different things. And I wound up doing videos for MTV and a bunch of bands. And then I did some off-Broadway shit. And then I moved out to L.A. In so we're 10 years. So I graduated in 92. Mm-hmm. I went out to LA in 1997 and moved out there with 2 guys I was very close with that are actors to today, that you'd see in a bunch of movies. I'm not going to name their names. I'll tell you off camera, but, I moved out there and, started working at the Sunset Gower Studios, working on a little television show as like a background actor, trying to get my feet in to like either get some kind of a recurring role or some kind of a principal role. And I was banging my head up against the fucking wall. And in LA, I had so much fucking crazy shit happen to me where we had moved into this complex and the guy, one of my neighbors got murdered. I mean, big fucking stories. And I wound up coming back to New York with my tail between my legs at a certain point, realizing that I wasn't going to make any money. And then from there, I jumped headfirst into entrepreneurism.
Yeah.
You know, trying to build a business, whatever. And my personality, you know, I was talking to my wife about you yesterday and Eric and myself. And, you know, I don't want to pat, you know, each of us on the back and go, you know, we're the best. But I believe we're truly gifted in a way where not many people happen to get the gift, right? So, like, if you're smart enough to realize you have one, and for me, it's teaching, that if you're smart enough to realize to have one, that at least you put it to good use, you could find your purpose and you could live out your purpose, which didn't make any sense to me when I was fucking 20.
Yeah,
you know,
of course
two,
not. Yeah.
Right?
It
You're
takes
like,
a
what does
lifetime
purpose
to
mean?
figure that
You know?
out. Yeah.
Yeah, came on back. And then from there, I've had some incredible failures. And I've had some incredible successes. And as you go through life, you start to level it off a little bit. And then it wasn't until, I got to be dead honest with you because I'm in this game for so long, that until I, like, towards the end of, like, cash transactions and really understanding creative is when I started to really level it off. It was up and down. And I think as an entrepreneur, like, you look for the hard shit to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we don't like comfortable and easy.
Yeah, you want high risk, high reward.
High risk, high reward.
That's the drug, right?
That's the drug.
Yeah.
And once you get a little taste,
Yeah,
you're like, oh shit, I got that $70,000 rip.
And it's a little bit of an ego thing too.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you're like, I can do this really hard fucking thing nobody else can do.
Yeah.
You know, and you get to that level and you're like, man, let's see what else I can do.
Yep.
What's the next risky thing and the high reward.
What's up, guys? Thanks for watching my video. If you'd like to watch more videos, my playlist is right here. And if you'd like to subscribe, click down here. I'll see you guys at the top.